in Public Service Commission's Rulemaking 85 on energy storage. And Mr. Burkowski.
Okay, good morning, Chair Hoover and Commissioners. John Borkowski, in the role of Maryland Energy Storage Work Group Leader, and with me at the panel table is Mike Dean, Staff Counsel. I have a small presentation. I wanted to just provide a brief overview, just to sort of tie some things together. You may recall that back in February, the Commission had an RM85 rulemaking proceeding, and at that point, the Commission did approve regulations. However, we had to pull the regulations because of the fact that the Renewable Energy Certainty Act was passed in the 2025 session, and it changed some of the actual regulations. Specifically, I've got a list of different items in the Renewable Energy Certainty Act that impacted regs. I won't go through them all here, but I had to get the sub-team who worked on the original regulations back together so we can incorporate those requirements, and it took us a little bit over 2 months, and we filed a revised petition for rulemaking in July, and that's why we're here today. I will note at the outset that in running the subgroup that was working on providing the revised regulations, we did limit the scope of the subgroup's activities to only items that were necessary to implement the Renewable Energy Certainty Act or to correct errors or provide clarity. We were not taking any substantial changes to the original regulations because they had already been considered by the Commission back in February, and we didn't want to rehash those proceedings. So we did sort of have a narrow scope effort. Okay, so with that effort, we did get broad consensus on most of the changes, and we did get a few comments from different parties, and I have provided, and I'll pull up a document in a few minutes, with a set of unfiltered edits proposed by stakeholders. I will say we will have Cardinal Energy Storage East up to talk about their proposal. Staff supports the regulations. OPC has some changes which we will also have the OPC representative discuss. 9DOT, I feel like they are not represented here today, and I feel like through the meeting that we had yesterday, we've resolved their issues. So basically, because they are not here, I want to just say that their issues were more with the application that we have and than the regulations. We actually have posted an application for front-of-the-meter energy storage devices. It's on the Commission's website. We had the same sub-team work on that application. Right now, it only applies to energy storage devices 20 megawatt hours or below. And 9DOT wanted some specificity related to timelines because of the fact that the application requires certain information, and certain information might not be available at the time a developer wants to file an application. So I think we've resolved that in allowing we have some changes that are under review right now by the subgroup in that application that allows for an applicant to, for construction of an energy storage device to basically submit the application with some information missing, but it won't be considered administratively complete and go to the Commission for approval until that missing information is provided. So I think with that change, we have alleviated some of the concerns that NINDOT had. The other concern is they want a similar type application for 20 megawatt hours or greater, and we have committed to doing that, but we prioritize that as a later effort because we really don't expect to see an application for an energy storage device 20 megawatt hours or greater until probably next year. The other item that they suggested, I'll cover that. I think we got broad consensus on their edit. I'll cover that when I go through the actual edits. The SEIA, Solar Energy Industry Association, is not represented here today. And their items I will go over when we go through the red line version of the edits that they proposed. The Maryland Joint Exelon Utilities also had some comments. I think we've resolved most of those issues, but we will have an MJEU rep here to talk about that today. So with that, I'm just going to get into the regulation proposal. You can bear with me for a second. All right, there are various, see if I can get this blown up a little bit. All right, there are two different versions of Redline. One was filed in July. I have that here if we need to pull it up. But since we had consensus on most of those edits, you know, I felt that it would be more productive just to deal with the latest round of comments where we don't have consensus. Certainly, if the commission has any questions about what we filed, which is a lot broader in terms of number of changes to implement the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, we can bring that up. But at this point, I'm just going to go through the latest round of comments where there was some non-consensus. The first item under authority, I'll discuss that later. I do realize I still have an error here. I'm referring to the PUA statute, excuse me, the CPCN statute in the PUA. And I got it out of order here, but that will be taken care of as a minor change. See if I could scroll through. All right, under definitions, one of the items in the Next Generation Energy Act, it requires notification to affected communities. And the affected communities definition that we used here parallels the affected communities definition in COMAR 20.79, which is our CPCN regulations. However, SEIA wanted to remove residential individuals from that definition, thinking that the interpretation of that particular item would require letters to each individual within 1 mile. And while it is true that you can get, like in a transmission CPCN case, you can get letters to individual customers that are adjacent to a line that can be, you know, hundreds or more. I think the way it's been applied in the CPCN is really defined in the statute to some extent by advertisement, newspapers of general circulation, on social media, et cetera. So I think that, you know, while additional specificity might be desired by some stakeholders, you know, I really, we were trying to parallel the 20.79 practices here, and I'm recommending at this point no change. So if there's any discussion of that.
So, just so I'm straight, you want to keep the reference to residential and
Exactly,
individual.
yes. I'm just
I got
showing
it.
the red
Fair.
line proposal.
Yeah, I got it. Commissioner Suchman.
So the concern I have is when you take something out so that it's different than definitions in other places, it has significance, and I don't know what that significance is. And so this could mean that you give them no notice of any kind, and it just seems to me that because its notice has been interpreted to be sort of broad notice. I just feel like we're playing with fire if we start
Well,
changing definitions where they're different than other places.
yeah, and I just want to clarify, and sorry for not being clear. I am showing the unfiltered edits. I'm not necessarily recommending.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm commenting
Yeah.
to SIA.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're a vessel.
Okay, great.
So, and I don't see the benefit, and I worry about what the consequences of this would be.
Right.
So I'm agreeing.
Okay, great.
Anybody else? Commissioner McLean.
Sir, are there notice provisions within the regulations as to, similar to the CPCN statute?
There are not specific references. Actually, yes, there are. I should have been more prepared for that question.
Well, and if I'm jumping ahead, we
No,
can certainly wait.
no. Let me. I thought we defined notice.
I know it's defined on the application, sir, in a footnote.
Okay, that's where we defined it. Yes, yes. I do have the application here, and I'll read what we put in the application.
Yeah, it looks like it's on page 4, footnote 9, sir.
Okay. Thank you for the help.
Sure, yeah. The only difference between that and the CPCN statute is the commission website isn't specified. But I guess, should this be specified in the regs? Or,
We did not recommend it in our proposal, but we do have it in the application, as you note. I thought we had put it in the regs, but we had, I was mistaken there. Notice to affected community means an advertisement in a newspaper of general circulation in the county or municipal corporation affected by the application, and on 2 types of social media platforms. And to be consistent with the statute, I can add, I am going to be revising this application as a result of our subgroup's discussion yesterday, and I'm planning on putting it out on the commission website next week. I can add the commission website reference here to be totally consistent with the statute.
okay, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Barbe.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm. Where in the code is the definition of affected community? I just want to
It's
read.
in Comar 20.79.
Oh.
I don't have it in a reference in code, I don't think.
I just wanted to read it.
It is in PUA 7-219, the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, where it actually,
I just wonder if that is the language that we put in the CSNA that had all the delineation of what the definition of an affected community is. I just want to make sure it's that.
the CSNA definition, there was a definition of overburdened and underserved
Yeah.
community, which was put into the environmental article.
Yeah.
But I don't believe the CSNA talked about affected communities affecting, that would be in the PUA.
Okay. All right. Well. Okay. Well, I don't want to slow things down. I was just curious as to what the. I just wanted to read it at some point. So.
Okay.
Um,
Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't have a citation for affected community other than 20.79.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to proceed, at this point.
Yeah, you do have the notice to.
Okay. I think that Ravens game should have never went so long the other night. My mind was, I'm still catching up. But Mike, thank you, Mike. Mike is pointing out to me, and I thought we had put this in there. So, what number is it, Mike?
24?
24. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Notice to affected community, yes. So we put it in the application, and we also put it in the definition. I guess we don't have the commission website. But again, this is for developers. So now that I rethink this, I'm not sure because we're going to get into hundreds potentially of small energy devices over the years.
Mhm.
I'm not sure it'll be effective to put this notice on commission website. I really feel like we should leave the definition with, developer responsibilities. All right. Any further questions on that?
No, I think we're good, so.
Okay. All right. Apologize, I need to go a little bit slow, only because the computer is slow, but I don't want to miss something. But I don't think we have further changes until Regulation 7.
What's,
Oh,
wait a minute, page 2, number 13, looks like there's a red line change. About inverters.
Well, that was the.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
I skipped over it when I went to the notice, so thank you. All right, this is a recommendation from 9DOT. And we had a meeting yesterday with the subgroup, and there was no opposition to this particular change. 9DOT didn't want to specify an individual or a separate inverter just because of the configuration of some of these battery energy storage devices can have multiple inverters and have inverters integrated with the battery system. So I think that, given that explanation by 9DOT, there was no opposition to changing this proposed definition to say at least one inverter. So unless there's any questions,
I think looks like we're okay, so.
all right. And I think 06, there was a comment by the SCIA or CM. They did not actually write a regulation proposal, but they did provide 3 key changes they'd like to see to our definitions or for project maturity requirements, our requirements for project maturity. They're worried about projects being accepted into programs that aren't mature, and they want more emphasis on providing proof of site control at the time of application. They want more, basically, they talk about having for large projects, a deposit, and although we did discuss their proposal for $10,000 deposit in the work group, and we rejected that, they're bringing that up again, and they're saying for large transmission projects, even 10,000 is too small. They want larger deposits to prevent speculative projects. We obtained consensus during the work group, I would say near consensus, since SCIA still does not have consensus with that we would not propose that, specific regulations, but when utility or any administrator makes a proposal seeking commission approval, that they would define the project maturity requirements in that proposal. So we sort of recognize that this issue might be something that has to be proposed on a program-by-program basis, and we left it at that. And this proposal, since we had already discussed this, this also goes outside the bounds of, our narrowly defined rulemaking, where we were only trying to incorporate the effect of the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, since it had already been discussed and approved by the Commission. So we, at least as a work group leader, I'm not in favor of making any changes to this requirement.
So, Mr. Rakowski, you would strike C.
I would leave C, because that's the actual regulation, but I'm just highlighting it because of the SEIA.
Okay, so this would stay in place, and they wanted to further define what maturity a speculative project could be, or
Right.
when a speculative project is actually more of a mature so site control, they wanted to include that in this.
Site control, they wanted a deposit. They also wanted, same as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, they wanted to talk about, requiring an executed interconnection agreement at the time of application in some circumstances, and I think we heard, comments.
This is SEIA wanted that?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and all these things have been discussed before in the work group and dismissed, and weren't part of our regulation proposal that was approved back in February.
Okay.
I do think, as we get into these programs, I do think that, this is a start. And I think as we learn from our experience, we will make adjustments, and adding more specificity in the future might be a path that we recommend. But at this time, we're not recommending it.
Okay, all right.
All right, so we have a number of changes that were proposed by the joint Exelon utilities. We had no general opposition to any of these changes, really just providing some clarity, and in maybe one or two cases correcting an error. So I'm not going to dwell on this unless the commission wants to discuss these, because I don't think that they're anything more than clarifications. We did have one error here. We had an incorrect statute reference, which has been corrected. We were referring to the CPCN statute, but instead we had an error, and it referred to the Renewable Energy Certainty Act statute requirements. So we corrected that error, and I consider adding engagement here to be an error also, because of the fact that as you can read below in 08, engagement is one of those aspects that someone can seek a exemption from, or excuse me, a waiver from. So unless there are any questions about that, I would recommend.
Commissioner Barbie.
Yeah, I just have one question. And all these references to notifications to the General Assembly, was that written in the law someplace, or was that the consensus? I'm just curious.
Okay, you're on 08 here.
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
that is part of the Renewable Energy Certainty Act.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so unless there are any questions with 07, I go on to 08, where the items in blue were items of concern by 9DOT that have been addressed through my comments earlier, so we are not recommending any changes here. I think we've satisfied the concerns. Furthermore, in 08.B with stakeholder engagement participation, further clarifications by the Maryland Joint Exelon Utility, similar to what we discussed before. Although we do in the highlighted green area have a request from 9DOT regarding clarification about 20 megawatt hour or greater projects. And as I indicated before, we are going to be developing an application for 20 megawatt hour or greater projects, similar in some respects to the application for below 20 megawatt hour projects. Although the requirements for the 20 megawatt hour greater, because they're larger projects, are much greater, so they can't be the same application. So again, prioritization, it's on our to-do list, and we will be doing that as a future initiative. But it doesn't need to, have any further specificity in regulations at this point. On our website, the Commission's website, if there is an applicant that wants to come in with a 20 megawatt hour or greater, we have an email address actually on the Commission website, and we will immediately take steps to try to facilitate that. But at this point, we don't have the application developed. Okay. And I would like to skip the, again, further clarifications from Maryland Joint Exelon Utilities, that similar in respects to what we've discussed before. And the items in blue are items that 9DOT had submitted that have also been addressed. So unless there are any other questions, I'll continue to go forward. Okay.
Seeing none?
All right, Regulation 9 involves safety, citing and environmental requirements. I did want to point out that, batteries with lithium-ion chemistry are subject to NFPA 855. In fact, I think NFPA covers other chemistries also. But our regulations are agnostic to the type of battery or even the battery chemistry. But if you have a lithium-ion, for instance, because they've had issues with hazards in other states and things of that nature, that's a more intensive review just because of the NFPA references here than other energy storage types that might not present similar safety concerns. And the way we've set up our application process, if there are battery, keep in mind that we could be getting, because we have to have Commission approval of any front-of-the-meter energy storage device, we can be getting them as small as, 500 kilowatts. We can be getting a lot of these things. So our application requirements basically are designed to make sure we're meeting the statute requirements from the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, but we also want to streamline these battery approvals as much as possible. So if there are no issues with the application, we expect staff to recommend at administrative hearings, on a consent agenda, approval of a lot of these battery devices. But if there is a particular concern, then it would go to, the regular administrative agenda. And if there was a large enough concern, we could probably spin it out to a separate case. So we've retained that flexibility, when we're processing these applications. to sort of send it along different pathways depending on, stakeholder feedback and any concerns. So I just wanted to make that point, only because I received a question on that. But there are different pathways for approval depending on the complexity of the device and any concerns that are raised by the community.
Yeah, I want to thank you for going into that. I asked John about different chemistries, some of which are safer, but this is good that the NFPA standard is what's really hinging on all of this. So as new technologies come up, that'll be vetted properly at that level. So I'm satisfied with all that.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we have, again, similar wording as we discussed before, so I'm going to skip through it. Our next change gets to the commission approvals, and we had a recommendation from Cardinal Energy Storage East LLC, and I believe Mr. Carville Collins is here to talk about that particular recommendation. Carville, you want to talk about your recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. John Burkowski. I appreciate it. Thank you for that presentation and that invitation. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, I'm Carville Collins with Saul Ewing. I'm here on behalf of Cardinal Energy Storage East. Perhaps I should just start to say I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the work of the work group and the work group leader. This has been an excellent process over many months. Been open, been very considerate to all viewpoints, so much appreciated. Cardinal Energy Storage is a subsidiary of Tenaska, an independent energy company with more than 8,500 megawatts of battery storage projects under development across the U.S. Essentially, we develop large-scale battery storage projects. The reasons for our proposed language on time extension that you see there on page 10 of the draft regulations in subpart 11. Those reasons are fully set forth in our August 27th comments. But we also note just the following considerations. First, transmission energy storage devices governed by Part 4 of the Next Generation Energy Act, which is Senate Bill 937, directs the Commission to establish by regulation or order a competitive process for the procurement of these transmission projects. That's at 7-1224. In the absence of an order, we assume it is these regulations that will implement the General Assembly's directive. This 7-1224 statute authorizes the Commission to approve time extensions on the 24-month operational deadline that's currently prescribed in the statute. So we have 24 months from the time that our project, if we were to propose it, from the time that it has been selected to the time that it must be operational. But it specifies that such approval must be based on, quote, good cause shown, end quote, by the applicant. The new statute remains utterly silent on what may qualify as good cause shown. As noted in our comments, an operational deadline of 24 months after the procurement selection by the Commission for large-scale front-of-the-meter transmission energy storage projects of the size that we develop is an extremely stringent time frame. And depending on supply chain conditions in the next few years, that time frame may prove completely unrealistic. The bottom line here is that for developers like Cardinal Energy Storage, the definition of this term, good cause shown, is needed. While I don't speak for all the energy storage developers, I am saying that in order for Cardinal Energy Storage and possibly other developers of large-scale transmission energy storage projects to respond to a procurement solicitation from the Commission and to enter into contracts to construct such large projects, further assurances in the form of specific criteria that may be considered by the Commission may be needed. Again, I say may. We've drafted this in a way that is entirely permissive, entirely discretionary on the part of the Commission, and not mandatory in any way. Such language in COMAR is not unprecedented. In the area of community solar, you'll recall that at COMAR 20.62.03.04, the regulations contain specific criteria for extension of operational deadlines for community solar developers, as prescribed by the Commission when those developers seek time extensions from their local electric company. And I acknowledge that the Commission has been very accommodating to these rather frequent requests for operational deadline extensions for community solar projects in recent months. But here, in our situation, we respectfully submit that our proposed language will be helpful, if not invaluable, to ensure that the ambitious statutory targets for deployment of 750 megawatts, 1,500 megawatts, and eventually 3,000 megawatts of energy storage capacity are achievable. Now, as a result of the revisions that the work group leader mentioned today, there is one change to what we have proposed that is needed. It's required as a result of yesterday's revision by the work group in subsection 7G. Our proposed language tracked the language of the draft regulation referring to CPCN proceedings pursuant to 7-219. And since that language has been revised, and you heard Mr. Borkowski address that this morning, our proposed language needs a corresponding change. Our language, if accepted by the Commission, should reference an energy storage device with essentially three characteristics. One, that is selected by the Commission under 7-1226, that's the competitive procurement process. Two, that is vested with the same rights that a device would otherwise be granted through a CPCN under 7-207. And three, that is reviewed by the Commission under an alternative process as determined by the Commission. I'm happy to submit that in writing after today's hearing, just so it's clear as to the change that we would need to accompany the proposed language that we've offered. We appreciate your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
So, Commissioner Fleshman.
Okay, so, actually, I just pulled up 7-1224. Okay, so I'm just looking for the good, show me where the good cause language is.
Yes, in 7-1224,
Right.
it would be, there are two references to it. The first reference would be at B3, Roman numeral 2. And that's for the first tranche, the first 800 megawatt tranche.
Okay, so, okay, I'm talking to myself. Okay, so what you're interested in doing is defining what good cause shown could mean. Okay.
Precisely.
And the concern I have in the way that you've drafted it, it doesn't really do that, and it may end up doing nothing for you. And the reason I'm saying this is because the considerations here don't define good cause as much as it just defines what we can look at. So it seems to me, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with being a little clearer about what can be shown for good cause. But I think that it needs to be directed to that. So I think you could read something like, in determining whether to extend an operational deadline under this I think you have to put the language in for good cause shown. Good cause could be demonstrated by, and then you list these. Because otherwise you have the commission may consider these, but you're not really, I mean, we can consider lots of things, but really what I think you're trying to get to is what you need to be able to show for good cause, as opposed to what we're doing in considering these. This is mostly just a drafting thing. It doesn't really work in the way that it's drafted, but you understand where I'm going on this.
I do, Commissioner, and I welcome those sentiments. But as I mentioned, I wanted to be very careful not to step upon the discretion of the commission. Maybe I was being not aggressive enough. But what I was proposing is criteria that the commission could consider.
Well, but we can always consider things. But I think it's just clearer if you define what could demonstrate good cause. So then we can look at this and say, okay, let's look to see whether there were issues around procuring the necessary batteries or whatever. So because otherwise it's not really clear in how it's in what's included here.
And again, I appreciate the sentiments, and we would welcome stronger language in that regard to be more
Well,
precise.
it's not stronger language. I'm thinking that it just feels clearer to me. I mean, because you want to know what we would consider good cause, and it would be helpful for us to understand what good cause could mean. And Mr. Bukowski, I know, has a response to.
Yeah, I've been very anxious to respond here.
Please.
Actually, before I turn to you, the person at the podium.
Oh, please let Mr. Barkowski go
Okay,
first.
all right.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to say that the programs that are referred to in the statutes cited by Mr. Carble, 7-1224, et cetera, those are requirements of the Next Generation Energy Act, and they are it's a one-time solicitation, although it's two separate tranches. And we discussed, incorporating Next Generation Energy Act within the work group, because we were also, we knew we had to incorporate the Renewable Energy Certainty Act. But in general, we do not write regulations for one-time programs. And I think that, if this was a continuing requirement of the statute, we would be required to write regulations for it. But I feel like all the concerns that Mr. Carble addressed, potentially can be addressed in any requirements set for that particular program from the commission, and we are working to secure our consultant for that program right now. But once we've achieved the objectives of that particular solicitation requirement, it's over with. So I think it's inappropriate to have regulations for a one-time program, although the action about what particular items could demonstrate good cause, we could welcome those comments, but I just recommend they don't be considered in these regulations.
Okay, so just to be clear, so to the extent that there is a time extension request, it's not going to be in here. It's going to be in a different part of the regulation.
It'll actually have to be in any communications from the commission regarding the solicitations, and we really haven't planned on doing much more than we've done already on communications until we have our consultant on board. But it's not going to be anything in regulations. It would, perhaps be in the commission notice, or an order if there were things that needed to be ordered, but not in regulation.
Okay, so at this point, you don't see that there's a need for spelling out any,
Right.
any sort of required extensions?
But it would be helpful to receive developer feedback on, items like time extension, so that we can consider it, when we're putting out our solicitation. So I'm not dismissing that some of these ideas, might be worked into our solicitation, but I just think it's a different venue.
Okay, and would that take care of your concern if it's included in the solicitation? Well, maybe not completely, but it would address some.
Commissioner, yes, it would.
Okay.
Because the heart of the matter here is, how is the commission communicating with the developers like my client and others? What assurances or what conditions are you specifying? And if those sorts of considerations are relevant to the commission for it to determine that good cause has been shown, that is the kind of communication that is needed. So if this same language or something similar with these types of criteria were to be included in the solicitation for these types of projects, it would be my view that that would be sufficient.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, Mr. Borkowski, what's the harm in including Mr. Collins's proposed language or something similar to it?
Well, it refers to specific statute requirements that, sunset after, 2 years unless, extended. Again, I don't, certainly, I'm sure somebody could point to an exception, but I think in general, we're not aware, at least I'm not aware of, that we put in regulations that, for something that's going to sunset within 2 years.
May I add a supporting comment? Good morning, Andrea Harper, from Maryland Exelon Joint Utilities. I think that's what we're called today.
Wait, just so I'm saying, who are you representing?
Maryland Exelon Joint Utilities.
Okay.
So just as a kind of supporting point to let me first say that we are not objecting to the language, and we are sympathetic to the idea that there might need more clarity around time extensions. So, but our concern is this is one provision out of the Next Generation Energy Act, and that's 7-1224 through 7-1229. That's a very substantive series of provisions. And so our concern would be if you're going to add in one, then we have to go back and relook at all of the regulations and make sure that you're looking at the whole, so you're not just cherry picking provisions out to add into this. So from our perspective, having it in an order or in a notice or something other than regulations would be, or in your our RFP would be the way to handle it, not in regulations.
Any response to that?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the regulations as we've drafted it would be very specific to that 1224 through 1227 process. There are several processes and there are several different types of energy all in this legislation, but the one that we're focused on is transmission energy storage projects. And the specific process is the competitive procurement of 800 megawatts per tranche for a total of 1,600 megawatts over a period that would essentially run 2 calendar years. Nothing more. And the good cause shown language in the statute applies to just those 2 tranches in just that 2-year period. We're not proposing a set of standards for any other type of procurement or development of energy storage projects, just this particular one specified in the statute. So we don't think that we need to do a complete overhaul of the whole statute and change the regulations everywhere, because we've attempted to pinpoint just this particular procurement of just this type of energy source in the two tranches that are specified under the statute. However, the notion that this could be, if this information is provided in the solicitation, in a commission order, in the commission's RFP, and it is to this type of detail, and if it followed along the lines of what Commissioner Suchman had suggested, which is let's be really specific and clear as to exactly what qualifies as good cause shown, that would be sufficient. So I don't know that we need to argue about, which regulations to change or whether it's good policy or not to have these changes in connection with a program that only has a 2-year duration. The essence of our concern is that developers like my client and others of the large scale, we're talking about well over 20 megawatts here, of projects of that nature, as long as we have that information up front at the beginning, it gives us the assurance, it gives us the ability, the confidence to respond to this procurement and go to contract.
Okay, Commissioner Barbe.
So looking at your language, when you refer to especially to the extent non-Maryland agencies are working to permit, you talking about PJM here?
That could be one, yes.
Who else?
To the extent there are other federal permits that are necessary, and at this point, I don't know that I can specify or look into the future to see what those would be or exactly where the concerns might occur.
Mm-hmm.
But at a minimum, indeed, PJM is one federal authority that is contemplated by that language.
So I don't know how closely you watch what we do, but we're pretty, I'll just tell you, we're pretty lenient with respect to waivers for good cause in a lot of instances. Does that give you any comfort?
It absolutely does, and I acknowledge it in the context of community solar.
Mm-hmm.
I myself have brought several of these applications for time extension, and the commission has granted those. So, and I've seen that the commission is doing this consistently when the criteria are satisfied. So that does give us some assurance, but those are community solar projects. Those are 1 or 2 megawatt or 3 megawatt or very small systems. We're talking about an enormous energy storage system here. What we have proposed already to PJM, and PJM has accepted in their reliability resource initiative, is a proposed facility for 500 megawatts of energy storage for a duration of 6 hours, totaling 3,000 megawatt hours in a single project. So while the assurances are very encouraging from the standpoint of what we see for things like community solar, a different level and a different set of assurances are needed for an investment in a project of this size.
So let me try to add to your level of assurance. I mean, it's our interpretation that the General Assembly's intent in passing that bill was to get more projects built in the state and to get them built sooner rather than later. So I think it's, our intent to do what we can at our end to make sure that, projects that get proposed to us actually get through the process and get built and start providing energy to the state. And as has been mentioned, I mean, we're not unfamiliar with this, waiver for good cause process. We deal with it literally almost every administrative meeting, and I think our track record on that's been pretty good. Now, I understand, desire on the part of your company who's making a huge, investment in this for stuff that they can point to in writing, but I guess, we're going to try to make as good an effort as we can to provide the level of assurance within all of the documents related to this RFP, which is, sort of a new process for us too. And so, I think we're going to keep in mind, what we need to do to make sure that, when we ask people to come to us with projects, that we actually will get somebody to respond to it.
Mr. Chairman, those comments are very reassuring. We acknowledge them and appreciate them.
Okay.
And so that's great. Again, though, I think if the commission were to include something in the procurement, in the RFP, in the solicitation, so that we have it
Okay.
in writing as a specific consideration, a specific element of the procurement, that too would be very assuring.
Sure, and I understand that, and obviously we haven't written the RFP yet, so, it's definitely a distinct possibility that what you're looking for is actually going to be there, because we'll take that into our decision on that. I mean, I guess I can't, give you an ironclad guarantee, but again, our intent in this is to make sure that this process produces something, not just an exercise in futility. So I guess we'll keep that in mind, and we'll see what comes forward. So
Thank you.
okay.
Okay, thank you. So to be clear, we will not.
Yeah, we're not going to put it
accept
in the regs, but we will make a note of this, and since you oversee the work group, you can, I guess.
Right. Will do. Okay, finally, we have two recommendations from OPC, and I'll let Jonah Baskin discuss them.
Thanks, Mr.
I mean,
Cassidy.
if you want to sit at the table, if that's easier, go ahead. So.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, I'm Jonah Baskin here for OPC. Our edit to 12C is what we see as an entirely clerical and clarifying edit. 12C did not clarify who would be performing the initiative assessments as A and B do. And our understanding was that the intent of this regulation was that the administrator of a program would be providing these assessments in the annual report. So 12C is just to clarify that. 12C to E we see as being along a similar line of clarification of commission intent in approving these early regulations, although it does create new substantive requirements. Our concern was that in 12C2, the commission wanted to have an equity analysis associated with these programs. And the way that the regulation is written in C2A looks at the total number, total kilowatts, and kilowatt hours of energy storage devices that provide benefits to underserved communities, but doesn't necessarily look at the magnitude of those benefits. And so, being able to see that 5 batteries provided some amount of benefits to underserved communities doesn't tell you the extent to which those batteries are providing benefits to underserved communities, especially in cases which we expect where batteries are providing benefits to multiple communities. And so it's not clear the extent to which that those benefits are divvied up. So we propose C2E, which creates a benefit cost analysis that mirrors the benefit cost analysis which needs to be performed for the program as a whole, specifically looking at underserved communities, which we think gets to that intention of doing a equity analysis while actually looking at the benefits and costs that a program provides to underserved communities.
Okay. Any questions? Well, actually, I mean, I was going to see if anything up here first, so, to what he just said. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm having difficulty envisioning how the analysis would go. So let me say, let me pose a scenario. Battery is proposed near a community that could be defined as a at-risk community, underserved or at-risk community. And of course, like everybody else in society, people in these communities benefit from greater electrification and less air pollution, but couldn't you almost always make an argument that this battery's indirect benefit to the community will never overcome the potential downside? I mean, couldn't that argument pretty much be made 100% of the time?
What would the potential downside that you're envisioning be?
Fear of exploding batteries?
I-
Since that's what people are afraid of, even though it hardly ever happens.
I would say, Commissioner, that the language that we proposed for this benefit cost assessment is the benefit cost assessment that needs to be proposed or that needs to be conducted for the program as a whole. So this doesn't, to the extent that the Commission is concerned that we can't perform good benefit cost analyses with batteries because there's too many subjective components, that's a concern that you might have with our requirements.
Well, wait a minute. Let me push back on that a teeny bit. Obviously, when you're talking globally about the benefits of batteries versus their downsides globally, I mean, to me at least, it's very clear that electrification is a gigantic benefit to society. And it's clear to me that viewed globally, batteries will almost always be beneficial, even if there is a minor risk of a mishap in a particular place. So I think, yes, globally that's a calculation that can be made. But as you start to focus in on the environs of where the battery is, suddenly that analysis doesn't become quite so. That's where it starts to become very, very subjective. It's a little bit like saying, you know, if I'm a diabetic and I have a little port stuck in my arm, this is a benefit to me as a person, but that little spot there where the needle is poking into my arm may not benefit so much. So maybe I shouldn't do it for that reason. That's what I'm concerned about.
I hear your concern, Commissioner. I think, one, we know that these batteries, especially when they're following standards, are safe. So I think that, you know, a sober cost-benefit analysis will, you know, not be overstating the minute risks associated with them when they are properly installed. And I think that to the extent that there are concerns with how we would understand those costs appearing, that's not where OPC's concern is coming from. Our concern is rather coming from that we're saying we want a numerical understanding of how many batteries are providing benefits, but we're not actually taking a look at the magnitude of those benefits. And so we don't think that the current proposal really allows us to do any sort of equity analysis here.
Well, I mean, but the language says benefits and cost to underserved communities, which leads me to believe that the localized cost is always going to be greater proportionately than to a community than it would be to a global analysis of, you know, Prince George's County or Montgomery County.
OPC would be open to having this look like to modifying this language to talk about costs in terms of rate impacts, which is really where that cost element was coming from.
Oh, not localized environmental cost?
To the extent that there are, I don't believe that there will be significant localized environmental costs
Talk to
associated.
people who live near it. They'll disagree with that. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sussman.
So I'm going to follow up on Commissioner Barvey's questioning, and I'm wondering, the impact of storage can be huge, but it can be huge in lots of different ways, and hopefully it means we have to build out less infrastructure, which would be a good thing, and that would be a benefit to everybody. But we can also sort of say that there are localized benefits when we're dealing with constrained feeders, and who are we benefiting there? And so, are we really serving the underserved communities by locating enough storage to address their feeder constraints? It's not really a a benefit cost analysis as much as it's really sort of an overall impact on the underserved community. I understand, and benefit cost analysis is really helpful in lots of different contexts, but I'm not sure that really captures at least what I would be interested in. I would like to make sure that when we do storage, that underserved communities also benefit, and they can benefit in lots of different contexts. It's almost not looking at cost; it's really looking at impact. And so, I mean, unfortunately, when you have a word like impact, it's kind of hard to know what it is that you're reporting on. But I'm just not thinking that the benefit cost piece is really working here and is really going to get us the kind of information that we need. I mean, mostly I think I would like to make sure that they are that they're adequately represented in when we're deploying this technology, because there are lots of places where the feeders are constrained and they will benefit from the storage.
I would say, Commissioner, that the whole point of our work in the UBCA work group is that we do think that these benefits can be monetized and quantified. And so, relieving constraint on a feeder, that has real monetizable benefits, like enhancing the resilience or reliability of a local area has real significance and real benefits, but those are also benefits that can be quantified. And so, to the extent that we see that we're in a interconnected distribution system, and adding a DER at any point on the distribution system has impacts that are pretty wide-ranging, but then get diffuse the farther out you go. Our concern was that you can say that there are benefits associated with a battery that may be marginal to an underserved community, but nevertheless would be wrapped up in that report under C2A, that don't really give us a good sense of how much these programs are providing the benefits to underserved communities and the distributional impacts.
But really, aren't you talking about? I mean, battery storage will have huge benefits for the whole system. So you can say, they're gonna benefit like everybody else is gonna benefit. But it just seems to me that you really want underserved communities to be reflected in the program as a whole. You want to make sure that they're getting that it's not just that they're getting benefits, but they're also engaging in this, that they're not sort of forgotten, because you can get positive benefits without having any battery storage in any underserved community. But that's not really what we want to see happen. And so the benefit cost analysis is going to come out very well, but we're not going to see engagement. And that's why I feel like you need to look at it a little differently. At least I think. And Mr. Kelsey maybe has an answer to this. please.
Well, actually, before you start, I mean, anybody else? Oh, Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Just a quick question. Do you have any examples of other jurisdictions that are producing this type of report that you're looking for?
Not on hand, Commissioner, but I can follow up.
Okay. Well, I think we're moving forward with adopting
I
it
was gonna
today.
say, yeah.
So yeah, I had a potential suggestion, but I don't know. I don't think it's worth it if there isn't something that I could point to as an example of how it could work in the back end. So, all right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
All right, so actually, before I turn to you, one last thing. So this is before you got here, but when the original battery storage pilot program was initiated, there was this, fairly intricate benefit cost analysis that was done on all the projects that were proposed, and under that statute, the utilities had to pitch two types of projects, one that they owned and one that they independently contracted with, but the same BCA analysis was applied to both. So is that what you're envisioning for this?
I think that we would want the same BCA analysis that's provided under 12 C1. So to the point being that we're doing an apples to apples comparison of the relevant costs and benefits of the program to the state as a whole, and a comparison of that is an apples to apples comparison of the costs and benefits of the program to underserved communities, specifically to make sure that underserved communities are receiving equivalent benefits as non-underserved communities.
All right, so you want to, okay, then
Let Mr. Prokowski go.
you go right ahead, so.
This whole issue of initiative assessments, I just want to state that an initiative is really a program, an energy storage program, because, under the Maryland Energy Storage Program Work Group, we recognize that you can have a variety of different programs to achieve our overall objectives. So we called these things initiatives only to distinguish it, because we had confusion between Maryland Energy Storage Program, which is sort of the umbrella, and then all the initiatives under it. As Mr. Baskin noted, that C1, is an overall initiative assessment for the program, which includes, benefit cost analysis. But under C2, it's just trying to do, I think what Commissioner Suchman was alluding to is just try to determine, how these energy storage devices are providing benefits to underserved communities. And we had various metrics that are reflected there, but we did not go as far as require a separate benefit cost analysis. And this is actually an addition to scope, meaning it's outside of the narrow bounds of the rulemaking that we proposed, because we didn't want to visit things that, really should have been part of the proposal in February. We were limiting it to the, Maryland Renewable Energy Act. Notwithstanding, the pros and cons of doing a deeper dive to carve out a benefit cost analysis for these communities, it's really outside of the scope of our proposed rulemaking. And I think, as you can see from the discussion here, to go further with this, I think, we really haven't vetted this through all the stakeholders. It's a comment that came up as a result of this rulemaking. It was only submitted by the deadline, which was 2 weeks ago. I think before we ever put anything like this in regulations, we need a much fuller discussion and proposal, and I don't think we're prepared to do that. And for that reason, I'm recommending against this particular proposal. Not to say that there aren't pros and to pursuing it, but I really feel like it needs further deliberation, and, maybe RM85 2.0, but my interest here is getting RM85, approved, and I think this needs much further discussion.
So, anything you want to add? Or?
Thank you. Yes, thank
Sure.
you. I think, so from our perspective, we agree completely with Commissioner Suchman that this is really, the equity here is really about access and engagement. We will be doing a programmatic BCA, which will tell us a lot. We want to make sure that underserved communities get all the benefits of the batteries. They are included. They get to have batteries where they should be in their communities. They get to engage in, the discussion of those, and then they get the benefits of those. I will say that it is highly unusual to do a BCA on a subset of customers. I'm not aware of us ever having done that. So that would be problematic to us. I also take Commissioner Barbay's comment, and we agree with that you're starting to get subjective when you're starting to look at just a portion of the community, and that the benefit of the BCA is that you get kind of this more objective look at the larger program. And I think, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, for the most part, I agreed with the technical staff that the rule the draft as it looked was fine. But for this section, I was a little concerned about how we were limiting the report to only the items we listed here. So it's for the company, but also I guess for Mr. Borkowski. And I'm not necessarily committed. I'm more like a 5149 on this. Would it be too much to suggest that there be a provision instead of the language that is proposed by the People's Council, something that says something along the lines of other issues that the commission may deem appropriate, something like that. Something, in other words, we don't know what we're going to want to know in a year or two from now,
Right.
or 3 years from now. There could be a couple new commissioners, there could be a lot of new staff, new companies, etc. So, is it possible that it would be, there could be some benefit in leaving us the flexibility to say, because this is a regulation, so that we could point out the fact that, hey, we might want to know something about this too. So, just a sentence like that instead of.
We could, although I will say that you all have the ability to put in your orders things on top of regulations as well. I mean, I think
Right.
as we've had regulations, as you've come and confronted new issues or new technologies, new things that you think are appropriate, you have put in your orders some additional conditions. And so I think we are embarking now on something totally new. And so in our mind, let us get this going, figure it out. If there are new conditions, new technologies, new thoughts that you have in the future, we could put them in order. Or I'm quite certain this will not be the last time that we look at these regulations. If it's something that's really important and we, as a working group or as a commission, you think it's really important that it be in there, then we could have a fulsome discussion as a working group and we can get the right language in there.
That was pretty much it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't trying to propose the language at this point, but
No.
I know we have the flexibility to ask for it later. But when it's lifted up in a regulation that we could ask for something else, that at least puts everybody on notice that don't start throwing away data that you don't think is necessary because the commission just might ask for it. So I'm not saying it. I'm not proposing it. I'm just throwing it out as a
Okay.
possibility. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I mean, did you have? Oh, okay, go ahead. Sure.
Michael Dean from staff. One way of accommodating this would be under 2, to change all the periods to semicolons, and then after D have an and then for E have the wording any other matter required by the commission.
Or
you Well-
could just keep it as E.
Keep what?
Well, rather than do semicolons, which is very hard to read.
Or commas.
Right, you could just have, presumably we could do that anyway, but I think we could just keep E with as, and that will give us actually a better sense, since we're gathering all this data. It'll kind of give us a better sense of what's there and what we can get and what we need to get. I completely sympathize with where you're going. I'm just worried that the information you're asking here is not going to be helpful. I think, for example, I want to know that these batteries are finding their way into underserved communities. It's not just that they're getting the benefit from it, but they're actually realizing these, because I think what we're going to see is we're going to start to see batteries paired with community solar. We want those in underserved communities. And so I think just knowing that that's happening is for me is going to be much more important.
So,
I want to ask a clarification. I guess if the commission accepts Mike Dean's proposal, I would suggest that instead of putting it under 2E, that it just be item number 3 here, because you could ask the same thing about the initiative assessments
There.
themselves.
well, actually, before we go to that, I guess my thought was along the lines of, the assurances I tried to give to Mr. Collins about his concerns. I mean, isn't there a way for us to incorporate this kind of language in the succeeding documents and when we're setting up the initiative and doing the
Yeah.
RFP? So these concerns that he's talking about can be reflected in those things and actually provide an incentive to the project people to say, hey, you can get extra points if your project does blah, blah, blah. So,
In fact, I think if you go back to the commission's order regarding, that was in June regarding the front of the meter distribution connected, we did add additional considerations that we want the utilities to come back and report on, when they're providing their November 1st filings. So, it's the same
Yeah.
thing that Andreas, Ms. Harper stated. The commission can always overlay their requirements on top of regulations.
all right, so given that, I guess my thought is not to have E. So if we don't accept this new language, there wouldn't be an E, it would just end at D, right?
Right.
All right, so I guess that's my thought, is to do that. Cool. Work for everybody else?
I was comfortable with the staff proposal.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's, but
Well, wait, just so we're straight. So we're gonna eliminate E in its entirety.
Yep.
And we'll just stop at D. So, okay.
Right, and I
Yeah.
think, recognizing what you're interested in, because I worry that this assessment it could be the exception that swallows up the rule. We could be so overwhelmed by this, and to Ms. Harper's point, we don't collect this data at this final level, but knowing what you want to see in the subsequent documents that are sort of created to stand this program up, that could be reflected. Some element of that could be reflected there.
Okay, I want to add one other item.
Okay.
To be clear, since we're eliminating E, I want to make it clear that we are accepting this particular item in C, which is just a clarification.
Right, so you're talking about the new language after
Right, yeah, the subgroup,
initiative assessments, yeah.
the subgroup met yesterday and nobody objected to this.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand. That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
so with that, we're pretty much through unless there are any closing questions or
Oh.
comments.
So like they say at other ceremonies, any last words or?
Will you say I do?
That's right. All right. But instead of that, it's a lot longer. So, Okay, I move we publish the following new chapter and new regulations in accordance with today's proceeding in the Maryland Register for notice and comment, subject to any non-substantive changes necessary to conform to COMAR drafting requirements. And that would be adding the following new chapter, COMAR 20.50.14 energy storage, and add the following new regulations, COMAR 20.50.14.01 through 012 or through 12. Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Suchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
I vote aye. And with that, we're adjourned.